Ever look back at how you used to try losing weight and just shake your head? Like, what was I thinking? For years, I kept repeating the same mistakes, trying new diets, chasing motivation, getting all hyped for a few weeks, and then burning out and starting over again. It's taken me years to finally figure out what actually works for me. And honestly, I'm still overweight, but I'm losing it slowly this time, peacefully. Following a simple, plant-based, high-carb, low-fat diet finally made weight loss sustainable for me. And that feels completely different from every other attempt that I've made. So this video isn't some I've cracked the code sort of thing. It's more like, here's everything I wish I'd done differently sooner. Because I used to make this whole process way harder than it needed to be. Every year I'd start strong, convinced that this was the one, the year I'd finally fix it all. And every time I'd end up right back where I started, tired, frustrated, wondering what's wrong with me. And it turns out nothing was wrong. I was just doing it all wrong. And I'm not here to talk about any fancy nutrition science or some clickbait one secret trick. This is just the real stuff. The lessons that's actually helped change things for me after failing about 50 times. I'm sharing what's finally helping me lose weight naturally and rebuild my health without cutting carbs or hating the process. When I first started, I treated weight loss like a crisis that needed solving overnight. You know, I'd overhaul everything, start a new diet, buy a load of new supplements, new workout plan, new bedtime routine, new mindset, all in one go. And I'd crash every single time. You can't rebuild your entire life overnight. I remember those early weeks where I spent hours reading about macros and supplements, gym programs, like I was studying for an exam. Meanwhile, my day-to-day habits were almost like chaos. There's no routine, no structure, just constant overwhelm. I learned the hard way that when you try to do everything at once, you end up doing none of it well. Now I keep things simple. For me, it started with eating the same balanced, high-carb, low-fat meals every day. Rice, lentils, fruit, vegetables. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. I walk in the woods every day, and that's my quiet time, my reset button. And it turns out that calm consistency does more for my long-term weight loss than any perfect plan ever did. For years, I waited for motivation to show up. Like one morning I'd wake up and just feel ready. You know that thought. Once I get in the right headspace, then I'll start. Yeah, that never comes. We're not living in a movie. There's no soundtrack that kicks in when your life finally changes. The truth is, most days I didn't feel like doing it. I'd rather have stayed home, watched YouTube, make excuses. And some days I still do. Sometimes I plan to go to the gym for an hour and a half, but when I get there I only last 45 minutes. It doesn't matter. I still showed up. My mindset's in the right place now. What finally worked wasn't motivation, it was like small systems. Eating predictable meals, keeping my environment simple, making walking non-negotiable instead of something that I should do. Once I stopped waiting to feel ready and just focus on small structure, the same meals, gentle gym sessions, daily walks, things started shifting. I didn't need willpower anymore, just rhythm. And that rhythm is what's helped me slowly reach my 100-pound weight loss goal without burning out. I used to think healthy eating meant giving up everything that I liked. So every new start began with restriction. No this, no that. Cutting out entire food groups. It felt productive at first, like I was really doing something, but it never lasted. Eventually, I learned it wasn't about eating less, it was about eating smarter. Once I started repeating the same simple high-carb vegan meals, rice bowls, lentils, fruit, vegetables, everything calmed down. Predictable food. There's no guessing games, no guilt. I knew exactly what I was going to eat and how I'd feel afterwards. You know, there's no mental math, just peace. This one hit me hard over the years. I've wasted so much energy comparing myself to everyone. People at work, online, even strangers in the gym. You see people online, you know, the fit trainers, influencers, showing off their flawless skin, perfect bodies, big smiles, like they've got it all figured out. And you start thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? But the more I paid attention, the more I realised half the people were barely hanging on, burned out, injured, you know, chasing the money, not health. Behind every grind harder post was someone quietly falling apart. Meanwhile, I was judging my progress against their highlight reel. That kind of pressure kills joy fast. I had to step back and remind myself, slow progress isn't failure. It's actually the only kind that lasts. I'm not behind, I'm just on my own timeline. And so are you. That mindset shift was massive for me. It turned comparison into clarity, and it's why I'm finally seeing sustainable weight loss instead of endless restarts. For a long time, my biggest problem wasn't food or exercise. It was how I spoke to myself, and that affected everything. From how I ate to how I approached my weight loss journey. Every time I slipped up, I'd say things like, "You'll always ruin it," or "You'll never stick to this," "You're going to fail." The kind of self-talk that gets in deep after a while. It becomes an endless loop. Shame, guilt, restart, repeat. The shift came when I started treating myself like a work in progress instead of a failure, because that's what I am. In progress, not broken, not lazy, just human. Once I stopped beating myself up and started showing a bit of compassion, it got easier to stay consistent. You can't tear yourself down and expect to build anything lasting. But a kind of voice in your own head makes all the difference. The change in mindset is honestly what's helping me lose weight naturally and start rebuilding my metabolism after years of dieting fails. When I look back now, every phase that I used to call a failure has actually taught me something that I use today. The burnout years taught me to slow down, that you can't sprint your way to peace. All the losing and regaining years taught me that structure matters more than motivation. Those restrictive, joyless diet phases taught me balance, that food isn't the enemy, chaos is, and the comparison and frustration taught me gratitude, to appreciate quiet progress even when no one else can see it. The middle of the journey, that messy, uncertain part where you're tired of starting over, that's actually where you grow the most. I used to think the middle was proof that I was failing, and now I see it as proof that I'm still here, still showing up, still figuring it out. And that's what counts. That's what makes slow weight loss success possible. Not a perfect plan, but staying consistent through the messy bits. These days, I keep things really simple. I eat clean, basic, plant-based vegan meals. Rice, lentils, fruit juice, a bit of fruit, and that's about it. I walk in the woods every single day. Rain, wind, sunshine, it doesn't matter. It clears my head and keeps my energy steady. And honestly, it's where half my clarity comes from. I focus on calm consistency now, not the extremes. I'm losing weight slower than what I used to want, but this time it's real, it's steady, and I'm not miserable doing it. Progress for me now isn't about getting it perfect, it's about staying present, because every mistake that once broke me is now part of what's built this peace that I've got today. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. So yeah, if you're stuck in that cycle right now, don't start from scratch again. Just start smaller, simplify, reset, breathe. You don't need another miracle plan. You just need something you can actually live with, because losing weight naturally and keeping it off long term isn't about doing more, it's about doing less, but doing it consistently. Slow progress isn't falling behind, it's building something that lasts. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.